already ruled. I've already ruled at this point in time.
Ma'am.
We're done at this point in time. And he's going into jail today.
The drugs were there. I did not put the narcotics there.
This is Zachary Wester at his trial in Jackson County, Florida. He is a former sheriff's deputy facing charges of racketeering, fabricating evidence, false imprisonment, and possession of controlled substances. Wester is accused of planting drugs in several vehicles during random traffic stops.
A substance that appears to be an illegal narcotic. Do you know anything about that?
I do not.
Despite all of the drivers denying ownership of the drugs, the majority of them were still arrested. These arrests raised suspicion internally, leading to Wester's suspension in 2018. 3 years later, the case finally went to trial, where Wester pleaded not guilty to all charges.
This is a case about an abuse of an incredible power, about the abuse of the incredible trust that we all put, and we have to put, in law enforcement.
The prosecution used the defendant's own body camera footage as evidence to support their argument in court. Stephen Van, who had a criminal record, had recently been released from jail when Wester allegedly discovered methamphetamine in his car.
Have you ever seen this before?
No, what is that?
I'm just trying to figure out how that stuff got in your car. You're gonna go to jail today for possession of methamphetamine, okay?
Oh man, dude, I'm serious, dude. Anything, what you want me to do, man?
Similar to the other drivers who testified, Van allowed the officer to search his car as he believed he had nothing to hide.
And I knew my truck was clean. I knew it was.
During the trial, the jury was able to view the majority of the recorded traffic stops. However, it was discovered that some recordings had mysteriously vanished and were no longer available.
Why in the world would that have been deleted? I wish I knew that answer.
Interestingly, the body camera footage turned out to be the most compelling evidence for the prosecution, particularly in the case involving Teresa Odom.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
At first, the officer is very polite and even a bit playful.
The vehicle need to be concerned about bombs, hand grenades, rocket launchers. Okay.
As Odom stands near the vehicle, Wester initiates the search. It is worth noting that as he gets ready to put on his gloves, there is a small item visible in his left hand. Prosecutors contend that Wester concealed a small bag of methamphetamine in his palm, which he then alleged to have discovered alongside a spoon inside the vehicle.
Miss Odom.
It is yogurt, sir.
I know. Okay.
It's yogurt.
How about this, though?
That is not mine. No, sir.
Okay.
Now, the white small plastic baggie that was in that spoon that the deputy just showed you on this video, had you ever seen that before?
No, sir.
Was that in your car?
No, sir.
Regarding motive, the prosecution argues that the 28-year-old officer was ambitious and eager to advance to narcotics investigations as swiftly as he could. In contrast, Wester testified under oath that he never planted any drugs.
Drugs were there. I did not put the narcotics there.
After 5 days of testimony and numerous witnesses, the jury was tasked with delivering a verdict. If Wester is found guilty on all charges, he could face a life sentence in prison. Following 7 hours of deliberation, the jury returns with its verdict.
The State of Florida versus Zachary Tyler Wester, we the jury find as follows as to the counts charged in the information. Count 1, guilty of racketeering as charged.
The clerk proceeded to announce the verdicts for all 67 charges.
Count 7, guilty of official misconduct as charged.
Overall, the corrupt officer was convicted on 19 charges.
Count 9, guilty of official misconduct as charged. Count 10, guilty of official misconduct as charged.
The officer's convictions encompassed instances of misconduct during the arrests of both Van and Teresa Odom. Out of the 12 drivers involved, 11 of them filed civil lawsuits against Wester. In July 2021, he received a prison sentence of 12.5 years. This is Jeremy DeWitt, who is currently in court in Orange County, Florida, making his appearance as the defendant. Jeremy DeWitt, who is 41 years old, is facing charges of carrying a concealed weapon. The Orange County Sheriff's Office is well acquainted with DeWitt and his history. DeWitt has been arrested multiple times in the past, and he has a previous conviction for impersonating a police officer. DeWitt operates a security company that offers escort services for funeral processions. However, he has a lengthy record of misusing this business to drive recklessly in traffic, block intersections, and confront other drivers whom he perceives as interfering with his services. After a pursuit, the police finally apprehended DeWitt, and he faced charges in 2 separate counties. These charges included impersonating an officer and failing to register as a sex offender. DeWitt was released on bond, but 10 months later, the police caught up with him once again. During a routine stop, a deputy noticed DeWitt carrying an object that appeared to be a firearm, along with one of his employees. Openly carrying a firearm is against the law in Florida. Once DeWitt is placed in handcuffs, the deputy attempts to remove his helmet, which angers DeWitt, who poses as a police officer. When DeWitt discovers the reason for his arrest, he becomes extremely angry and loses control of his emotions. DeWitt is extremely angry at the police, and it appears that he is solely focused on one particular thing. However, the actual police officers do not respond favorably to his demands. DeWitt is transported to the police station and formally charged with carrying a concealed weapon. However, it is later determined that the weapon in question was an unloaded pepperball gun. As a result, the charges against DeWitt are subsequently dropped. However, DeWitt's recent arrest does not mean he is in the clear. Due to this incident, his existing bond is revoked, and he must appear before the judge to address the matter and seek clarification. Eventually, DeWitt is released from custody, and his bond is reinstated. However, he will still face trial for the charge of impersonating a police officer. If convicted, he could potentially face a prison sentence of up to 5 years. This is Brandon Brophy at the Fresno Criminal Courthouse attending a hearing for his burglary charge. The 31-year-old inmate is present in the courtroom, preparing for the proceedings. However, he suddenly decides that he is not inclined to stay any longer. Brophy, who is shackled, doesn't manage to get very far before a deputy attempts to restrain him in the hallway. During the altercation, Brophy makes an attempt to reach for the deputy's gun, while 2 bystanders choose to distance themselves from the situation. Despite being a foot taller and at least 50 pounds heavier than the deputy, Brophy's determination to escape is met with equal determination from her. Observing the struggle, another bystander exhibits bravery by intervening and assisting in subduing Brophy by applying a headlock. Deputies and court staff promptly arrive to provide additional support. Brophy is successfully brought under control, secured with restraints, and seated in a wheelchair. He is then transported back to jail. Following the incident, Brophy is arrested once again and officially booked into Fresno County Jail, facing additional felony charges for escaping jail, on top of the original burglary charge. His bail is set at $1,693,000 as he awaits his upcoming court appearance. A police officer was assigned to investigate a vehicle, unaware that it was a bait vehicle intentionally placed to catch potential theft. Upon inspecting the vehicle, the officer secretly took possession of pills and over $1,000 in cash. However, when reporting back, the officer falsely claimed that there was nothing of value in the car. Unbeknownst to the officer, the police department had intentionally planted the cash and pills in the vehicle. Interestingly, all of this incriminating behavior was recorded on the officer's body camera.
Crooked cop is caught in the act on his own body camera video. The key piece of evidence led to the conviction of a former MTSU police officer just this month.
Now, the case started with a missing AR-15, and as News Channel 5's Nick Barra shows us, it ended with an elaborate sting, all caught on camera.
This is a body camera footage from former MTSU officer Marco Burke as he approaches an abandoned vehicle on campus last year. Unbeknownst to him, this was a planned operation to test Burke's reaction when faced with temptation.
An integrity test.
Chief Buddy Peaster had suspicions that Burke, a former MTSU officer, had stolen an AR-15 from an MTSU police locker, but he lacked concrete evidence. To gather proof, The Murfreesboro police arranged a sting operation on campus, deploying a bait car equipped with hidden cameras. Officer Burke was assigned to investigate the abandoned vehicle alone. In the recorded footage, we witness Burke's focus as he discovers and discreetly pockets a bottle of pills. He then proceeds to take possession of $1,100 in cash and another bottle of pills. Shortly thereafter, Burke reports no unusual findings to dispatch, concealing his illicit actions. Two police officers were convicted and received prison sentences of 25 years and 18 years, respectively. This case marked the largest corruption scandal in the history of the Baltimore police. The leader of the corrupt task force was sentenced to 25 years, while another member received a sentence of 18 years.
Vic, Sergeant Wayne Jenkins got 25 years in federal prison earlier today, and moments ago, Detective Marcus Taylor got an 18-year sentence. He gave a rambling speech to the judge. He says he is innocent. He vows to fight this. She says that she regrets that he feels he wasn't treated fairly. She gave the government exactly what they wanted. Again, an 18-year sentence for him. Judge sentenced Sergeant Wayne Jenkins to 25 years in federal prison.
You have a gun and cocaine, probably I would say 2 1/4 just by looking at it.
The former head of the corrupt Baltimore Police Gun Trace Task Force wept and apologized for crimes that prosecutors say included at least 10 armed robberies, planting evidence, falsifying overtime, and selling $1 million worth of drugs, including prescriptions looted from pharmacies after Freddie Gray.
Two police officers were taken into custody on charges related to public corruption. It appears that these officers were engaged in fraudulent activities involving the misappropriation of taxpayer funds. They would allegedly arrive late and leave early, yet manipulate their time logs to reflect otherwise, thereby exploiting overtime pay. Such actions amount to stealing from the taxpayers. It is believed that they accumulated more than $120,000 through these illicit practices.
Federal prosecutors say it was a years-long scheme to fraudulently obtain overtime money. Money they say was federal funding to support highway safety programs like sobriety checkpoints. Former Lieutenant Daniel Griffin and former Sergeant William Robertson allegedly arrived late to their shifts and left early and falsified records.
To create the impression that they were working the entire overtime shift, Griffin and Robertson ensured that their co-conspirators all entered the same false number of hours worked into the system and entered false citation times to make it look like they were working the full 4-hour overtime shift when instead it was something less.
U.S. Attorney Andrew Lelling says they profited to the tune of at least $120,000 in taxpayer money.
Two police officers from Columbus have been arrested and are currently in jail, facing federal drug charges. The FBI was responsible for apprehending them. What makes this case particularly intriguing is that these two officers were originally assigned as narcotic officers and are now themselves being incarcerated for federal drug charges.
Those police officers are in jail on federal drug charges.
NBC4's Catherine Ross is live at police headquarters with what we're learning about this FBI investigation.
Yeah, Hattie and Matt, good morning. Well, so far we haven't learned too much. We are expecting to learn the details about those cases when the officers appear in court later today, but so far the city and the Division of Police here have not released any information. Now, here's what a source confirms to our NBC4 anchor, Carrie Charles. They say that officers John Koczkowski and Marco Marino were arrested on federal drug charges by FBI agents on Tuesday. Both officers are part of the narcotics division at CPD. Now, according to state prison records, Koczkowski is being held in the Delaware County Jail. Marino is at the Correction Center of Northwest Ohio. Booking information for both does not include the charges that they're facing. Now, the two officers are scheduled to face a judge today, and that is when we expect a lot of those records and details in these cases to be unsealed as well. But for now, live
Chief was convicted and sentenced for his involvement in safeguarding drug shipments. Instead of fulfilling his duty to protect and serve, he chose to protect drug shipments. Shockingly, he expressed no remorse and stated that if given the chance, he would continue his illicit activities. The allure of the substantial monetary gains he received was too enticing for him to abandon his criminal pursuits.
Major developments in another big story we've been following for months. It was sentencing day for a former police chief. Donald Solomon told undercover agents he was the best cop money could buy, and now he's going to prison for it. Channel 11's Alan Jennings is live with the video that led to his conviction and the punishment that was handed down today. Alan.
Got slammed, Vince. 11 years, 3 months. Stood before the judge and apologized to his children, the FBI, law enforcement in general, for violating his personal and public trust. The former East Washington police chief left the courthouse. His public defender attorney told him not to talk to me. U.S. Attorney David Hickton, meanwhile, called the 11-year sentence most appropriate.
The videotapes showing actual drug transactions where he was using his uniform, his police car, and operating in a fashion to protect the transaction and then escort the perpetrators to Interstate 79 was beyond chilling.
Here's that FBI surveillance video of then Police Chief Don Solomon meeting with who Solomon thought were drug dealers. They were actually FBI agents and FBI informants.
Purchased law enforcement tasers for a purported drug dealer to use those tasers in collection activities were shocking, to say the least.
During a year-long investigation, secretly shot FBI video also captured Solomon delivering his intentions to make thousands of dollars protecting cocaine dealers. And that's not all.
There was another line that captured some attention where he was asked if he wanted to continue in this type of behavior, and he said, hell yeah.
Solomon took about $7,800 to protect the alleged drug dealers. He'll be sentenced to federal prison. He's going to be allowed to self-report, and he asked the court if he could take part in prison ministry when he gets there. When he gets out of prison, he'll be nearly 70 years old. Live on Grant Street, Alan Jennings, Channel 11 News.
And that he said, I'm the best cop money can buy. Well, all the money in the world apparently can't keep that cop and former police.
There is a recently appointed police chief in town who, within just 6 days of assuming the position, has already initiated charges against multiple police officers. It is remarkable that in such a short time, 6 officers are now facing impending charges. This new police chief has wasted no time and is already making a significant impact on the community. Let's listen to what he has to say.
The shoe did drop on some of these officers today who apparently were surprised at their homes and taken into custody. At least one of them apparently caught on the highway as Michigan State Police followed him from a certain location. The chief did manage to take himself and his wife to the Ypsilanti State Police Post to turn himself in. He rolled out slowly and without comment in his Chevy pickup, the former chief of police, Mike St. Andre, and his wife, Sandy. Both charged, but free for the evening.
I'm kind of glad it's over.
He's only been on the job for 6 days now, and already Robert Dickerson has suspended 4 officers for misconduct, and today saw his predecessor, former Chief Mike St. Andre, charged. But several days ago, Dickerson wanted to take stern action.
I was ready to terminate him last week. However, because of the fact that they were given the direction, as I told you on the phone last week, they were given the direction and their supervision from the chief. And he basically approved the stuff that they were doing on that investigation.
Action News has learned that 4 of the 6 officers charged today are the same 4 members of the Romulus Police Special Investigations Unit who were suspended without pay for 30 days last.
This is Charlie Reeder at the Pike County Courthouse in Waverly, Ohio, attending the sentencing hearing of the former Pike County Sheriff. The sheriff pleaded guilty to 2 charges, theft in office and tampering with evidence. It is alleged that he unlawfully appropriated approximately $5,000 that had been seized in other cases. He now stands before Judge Patricia Cosgrove, and this hearing will determine the length of his sentence for these crimes. The defendant, visibly emotional, appeals to the judge for a lenient sentence, requesting the minimum punishment and community service.
I stand here before you today to take accountability for my actions.
As a sheriff of Ohio, I shed, excuse me, I shed bad light on the office of sheriff. For this, I am terribly sorry. If I could go back and change it, I would 1,000,000 times.
Another box of Kleenex.
For this is not who I am. I have and I now pray that the court will find mercy on me. And I beg the court, if they see fit, to grant me community control. I am a good person who made bad decisions and choices.
After expressing deep regret for his actions, Reeder pleads with the judge to take into account the consequences that a prison sentence would have on his family.
I'm asking all this so that I have the opportunity to watch my son graduate from high school. My daughter, who's getting married in October, so that I can be there for her. And my wife, so that I can be a husband that I haven't been in 25 years due to my career. Your Honor, please do not send me to prison. I have roamed, but I'm not ruined. I still have a lot of good left in me. And thank you for your time.
After the defendant finishes speaking, the judge has one question to ask him.
The big question I have, and is on everyone's mind, I'm assuming, is, I guess, why did you take the money?
I took the money, and mind you, this does not excuse it, but from drug dealers that took it from parents of very poor people in this county.
According to Reeder, he claims to have used a significant portion of the money to support charitable causes in the community. However, there is also evidence suggesting that he accumulated a substantial gambling debt. Unfortunately for Reeder, the judge appears unsympathetic towards his explanations and circumstances.
Law enforcement for 24 years. We all choose our profession, and we have to conduct ourselves with integrity so that everyone trusts us. It cannot be underestimated the damage that you have caused to the citizens of Pike County, to law enforcement who every day get up, face the same sort of stresses that you do. They go all home at night, they get up in the morning. The sacrifices that these men and women have made, I think you made a mockery of them.
Reeder receives a sentence totaling 6.5 years. However, due to certain counts running concurrently, which means they will be served simultaneously, Reeder will only serve 3 years in prison. Additionally, he is prohibited from holding public office in Ohio and can no longer work as a peace officer. This is Todd Pate attending his hearing. It is important to note that the defendant is not typically the person standing before the judge. Todd Pate, the former sheriff of Breckinridge County, is facing multiple charges including assault, operating under the influence, his second offense, criminal mischief, and leaving the scene of an accident. Today, the 51-year-old is present in court to change his plea from not guilty to guilty, a decision he has already confirmed in writing. By doing so, he will receive a reduced sentence of only 75 days in jail, as opposed to a potential maximum sentence of 15 years if he were to proceed with a trial and be found guilty on all charges. To formalize this plea change, he simply needs to state his admission before Judge Janet Crocker. The judge disregards the question and proceeds to inquire with the prosecution about the case.
Mr. Chambers, what is the Commonwealth's position at this time, sir?
Your Honor, we would move to revoke the defendant's bond at this time.
The judge calls for a short break, possibly with the intention of allowing Pate's attorney to remind him of his prior agreement to plead guilty. Upon resuming the court session, the judge makes another attempt to address the matter. The issue at hand is that Pate disagrees with the assault charge leveled against him. He believes that the prosecutor included this charge due to his previous role as sheriff and in response to his rejection of a prior plea deal. However, by this point, the judge has had enough. Pate's attorney appears visibly frustrated, while the judge grows increasingly exasperated with Pate's inconsistent positions. Eventually, Pate decides to plead guilty and agrees to the conditions of his sentence, which entail serving 75 days in a county jail with credit for the time he has already served. This is Jenny Mariah Kelly in San Luis Obispo, California, where tensions are rising between opposing lawyers despite the court being in recess. On one side is Timothy McGill, representing a client who is suing for wrongful termination as a state hospital employee. On the other side sits Deputy Attorney General Jenny Mariah Kelly, the state's second highest-ranking legal officer. During the recent cross-examination of a state witness, McGill posed a question aimed at undermining the witness's credibility. Specifically, he inquired whether the witness had met Kelly earlier in the day prior to testifying. This question was intended to cast doubt on the witness's reliability. In response, Kelly vehemently gestures and reportedly raises her voice, drawing attention from those present. Bailiff Tyler Brooks intervenes, requesting Kelly to cease her outburst and leave the courtroom. However, Kelly's body language suggests that she has no intention of complying. The situation takes an unusual turn, witnessing a state's deputy attorney general on the verge of being escorted out of court. However, the story doesn't end there. According to the sheriff's report, when Kelly refuses to lower her voice or leave the courtroom, the bailiff attempts to take hold of her hands and escort her out. However, she resists and pulls away, resulting in a struggle. The bailiff wrestles her to the floor while Kelly's co-counsel observes the scene with disbelief. Additional deputies arrive to provide assistance, and they manage to handcuff Kelly despite her continued resistance. Eventually, after some further exchange of words, she is finally escorted out of the courtroom. Subsequently, the California Deputy Attorney General is charged with the offense of resisting a peace officer. However, she later pleads no contest to the lesser charge of disturbing the peace. As part of her sentence, she is required to pay a fine of $1,000 and complete anger management classes.
Guilty of driving under the influence.
This is Lisette Gonzalez, who is 46 years old. Although a verdict has already been reached for Gonzalez's DUI charge, her attorney makes a final plea to Judge Fred Schott.
Not enough evidence presented for the jury to find the verdict that they did. They didn't do all the field sobriety examinations that should have been done.
During the trial, it was disclosed that Gonzalez was never subjected to a breathalyzer test or had her blood drawn. Surprisingly, arresting officer Michael Wagner recorded in his official report that she tested above the legal limit of 0.08. Wagner defended this discrepancy as an honest mistake, but maintained that he observed signs of intoxication.
I definitely ask that this court grant the judgment notwithstanding the verdict.
The attorney is requesting the judge to exercise his authority in an uncommon move to reverse the jury's verdict and declare the defendant innocent. Typically, such actions are seldom witnessed in the courtroom.
This isn't a purely circumstantial case, and so I'm going to deny the motion for JOA.
Although it may appear that the case has concluded, Judge Schott still has matters to address concerning Gonzalez.
Now, we have this other case for driving while license suspended.
Gonzalez faced a separate charge of driving with a suspended license, which occurred 2 months after her DUI arrest. The issue at hand is that her license was suspended solely due to inaccurate paperwork filed by Officer Wagner.
It was a mistake, admittedly, by Michael Wagner.
I know.
Testified to that today.
He caused her to have her driver's license suspended for at least a few months for nothing. So are you going to null process that case? Or am I going to get mad at you today?
Your Honor, but at this point,
Why wouldn't you? Wait a minute. Did you hear the uncontroverted testimony of this officer?
Your Honor.
Then I want you taking him up on perjury.
Your Honor.
Will you take him up for perjury?
He admitted it was a mistake, Your Honor.
No, but he lied. He lied on a sworn
Absolutely
citation.
not, Your Honor, and that is not true.
I'm dismissing. I am dismissing this charge. No, I'm dismissing the charge.
The judge has recently dismissed the pending case against the defendant, but his actions do not end there.
It was fishy, and I have no idea how they... You know what?
Their address on file.
You know what?
The state intends to
I'm granting. I'm rescinding the sentence. I'm granting the JOA.
In a surprising turn of events, Judge Schott reverses his previous decision and declares the defendant, Lisette Gonzalez, not guilty right then and there.
Because you don't agree with the state's decision.
I'm granting the JOA in fairness.
In fairness, because you don't like the state's decision today, Your Honor, on the case?
No, you're not. Now that I consider what Officer Wagner testified to and how many times he basically tripped over himself just to arrest this lady with no real probable cause. You're done. Motion to JOA is granted.
And you're not going to provide a written order on that?
Nope. You want to appeal me? Appeal me.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The case should have never been done.
As a result, Gonzalez leaves the courtroom without any charges hanging over her head, completely free from legal implications.